2013.
Hello YouTube, this is Frugal. Here we are with a first impressions, not a review. First impressions look at Formula 1 2013 from Codemasters. The third, I think it's the third or fourth version of their fully licensed Formula 1 Simcade racing game. Now this is a, as I just mentioned, this is a Simcade racing game. What that means is, and by the way, Codemasters, thanks for not letting us turn off the music throughout the menus, which is why you can't hear very much right now, because the music's all copyrighted and I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, this is a Simcade racer. What that means is that it's not quite easy enough to be an arcade game, and it's not quite full-fledged to be a simulation. Full-fledged enough to be a simulation. It's kind of in the middle. It requires a lot of skill, a lot of practice, a lot of time and investment, more than a normal arcade game, but it doesn't quite have the depth of a simulation game. That said, however, if you are into Formula 1, this is actually pretty damn good. There are two versions of this that you can buy, or one version plus DLC. So I'm just going to mainly cover, I'm going to talk about the features in the DLC in a second, but I'm mainly going to cover the core game. You get the main game, Formula 1 2013. You can also buy a classic version, which comes with two sets of DLC, covering the 1980s and 1990s. So that's a kind of a golden time in Formula 1, where you've got Michael Schumacher coming up to get his first set of world championships. Drivers like Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill, Alain Prost, they're all covered in the Classic Edition DLC, including as well classic tracks like Brands Hatch, Imola and Estoril. In addition, if you're English, you may be very familiar with a legendary commentator called Murray Walker. He is actually covered in the classic version as well. He introduces many of the stuff. As you can see, the UI here looks very much like it did in the previous versions. Nothing too new there. Let's go and look at the classics real quick. Not going to drive these today. We'll probably do another video just looking at the classics. But if we go into the classic section, there you go. I've already chosen my Williams car here. This is one of Damon Hill's cars. Got a number of things in here: Grand Prix, Time Trial, Time Attack, Scenario, and obviously Store to buy more. I'm not a big fan of DLC. I don't like that the store is embedded into the app. That's kind of lame. I don't like that you have to spend another, what is it, $25, $30 to get the DLC. I would have rather seen that bundled in, but all the same, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just my personal preference. Scenario mode is pretty cool. Here it is.
Beat all the Ferraris out on the track.
So you get these challenges, like Murray just told us, beat all the Ferraris out on the track.
Be first across the finish line.
First across the finish line.
Hold off the faster cars and finish first.
And so on and so on. And the idea is that you score points in here. As you can see, there's a global online leaderboard to the right there, and you score points as you progress through these challenges based on how well you do and the difficulty that you have set up. The cool thing is, let's go back in here. If we go to Grand Prix, this is where you actually access the bulk of the classic content. So you've got 1980s or 1990s. You can toggle between the two with a little key press. So there's 1990s, there's 1980s. And we can go through these now, and we can choose some really, really classic cars. So if I go and choose, for example, there you go, Williams FW12. We'll choose that. Now you can drive it as the original driver, in this case Nigel Mansell, or you can switch to Team Legend Damon Hill. That is so cool. And then having chosen that, you then go and choose the race settings, how many laps, how much difficulty it is, and then the tracks. This is very cool. And to be honest, it is actually pretty damn awesome. Even though it's somewhat arcadey, the classic cars don't feel as developed as the proper F1 2013 cars, but it is pretty cool to dump yourself at Imola and be racing Damon Hill's car as Damon Hill, fighting Michael Schumacher at Imola or Estoril. That is amazing. The cars sound great. We will do another video looking more in depth at the classic stuff. Let's go back to the main menus, and we'll look at the non-DLC content, because that's what the majority of people are going to probably buy. So they pared things down a little bit. You still have the career mode. What you don't have in career mode, though, is all the fluff. They've taken out all those press conferences and all the stuff behind the scenes, like checking your email and all that stuff from the previous versions, and just really cored this whole thing down into racing, which is actually pretty cool. You still get the young driver test. If you own the previous versions of the games, you can skip some of the young driver tests, which is kind of neat. You just get jumped straight into day 2, and you have to complete the challenges in day 2. They are every bit as tricky as they were in the previous game. We'll get onto handling in a second when I throw some video up showing you how this thing drives. We also have in here the Grand Prix mode, which is great. Instantly jump into any team, any driver, any car, and go race. Simple as that. So if you wanted to race as I do, for example, with Lotus, who I think I've gone past now, there they are. So you can choose Lotus, take Roman Grosjean's spot. Now you don't actually race as Roman or Kimi, you knock them out and they get replaced with you. So Roman is now Peter Wright. And then you can choose in here what kind of participation level, whether you want to have all the short weekend with one-shot qualifying, or you can go for the long weekend with one-shot qualifying, short qualifying, full qualifying, and so on. How many laps you're going to have in a race, how difficult it is, what the weather is like. Now, the weather will actually change through a race now. So you can go to a racetrack as they do in the real season, and you can start off on a dry track and then have it progress into a wet track as the race goes on, which is kind of cool. I like that. So all that stuff there, kind of neat. Let's go back out to the main menu. Proving Grounds. It's more scenario-based challenges like you just saw in the Classics. So if we go into scenario mode, it is just like you saw in the Classics here, but without Murray Walker. So you've got Rookie Driver, Teammate Battle. You need to unlock these. You unlock these by completing the previous one. So Rookie Driver challenges here.
Claw your way up the grid and finish ahead of your teammates. Marussia Rookie Driver is sat in 21st. He'll need to work hard if he's to finish ahead of his teammate in this, the first race of the season.
So, your first ever Grand Prix today. Let's impress the team by finishing ahead of your teammate.
They're pretty neat. They add a bit of fun to this. If you're a more casual simmer racer and you just want to jump in and do something quick and have a bit of a challenge, then these are the place to do it. Or Grand Prix mode is the place to do it with a short race, as we're going to see in a second. So that's all of that. Multiplayer here is on, they have RaceNet built in. When you go online, a race is up to 16 people plus 6 AI, so you got a full grid of 22 cars, which is kind of cool. If you sign up to RaceNet, then you also get the 1976 Ferrari 312 T2, which is recently featured in the movie Rush. So if you're into classic Ferraris, then sign up to RaceNet and get that. There is even a mobile app now to track your stats online on RaceNet, which is kind of neat as well. Anyway, enough talking. Let's jump into a car. Now, this is footage that I recorded previously, so we're going to look at a 3-lap race here with me driving as the Lotus. Just want to talk about how this thing races and the differences with the previous version. It feels a little bit different to 2012's Racer in that the cars feel a little bit more both well planted and skittish. So if I can expound on that a little bit, I think in 2012 the cars felt a little heavy in places. They don't feel so heavy now. They do feel very light. The understeer problems that have plagued this series are reduced in this. They're not totally gone away. They're still somewhat there, but you can compensate by just turning the wheel more. I noticed on my drive here, I'm using a Fanatec CSR wheel, that even though I've got the wheel set to only 270 degrees of motion, which is pretty much what you would have in a Formula 1 car, I'm still having to turn the wheel full lock on a track like this one, which is the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. So racing around the Italian Monza track here, I'm still hitting full lock for areas of the track where I really wouldn't normally be expecting to hit full lock, especially under speed. So that's a bit of an issue. The AI seems to have been stepped up a little bit. You still do occasionally collide with the AI cars, and that's a big thing to bring up, because if you're racing this like a sim racer and you're driving the cars properly and trying not to hit the other cars, then realistically the AI should respond properly and not hit you. If you look at a proper Formula 1 race, these cars are actually very fragile, and the last thing any driver wants to do is even briefly brush another driver. There are too many instances, I think, in this where the AI will brush you, will hit you. It doesn't cause damage to the car though. You need to get a fairly hefty whack on the car to cause some damage, and that's where the arcadey kind of video game aspect comes in as opposed to the simulation aspect. If you go on a full race, so the full race length, then you do get tire degradation, you do get all the pit stops and all that good stuff. The tire degradation is pretty cool. It really does affect the handling of the car. And in fact, on the new driver test on day 2, you actually do have a new driver test now with worn tires. So they show you the difference with a Formula 1 car racing with new tires and with worn tires, and then you can carry that through and look at worn tires on a wet track, worn tires on a dry track, and so on, which is kind of cool. Sound is good, as it always is. They've not done too much with the sound. It does sound very much like it did in the last game. The only difference, of course, is that if you do have the Classic Edition and the Classic DLC, then you've got that grumble and burble that you get from the old V10s and V8s in the 80s and the 90s, which is amazing. It sounds really, really good. However, as I said, those cars don't tend to feel as well developed as the 2013 cars, but we'll get onto that in another video. That's pretty much it. Overall first impressions, like I said, this is not a review. I've probably only done 5 races in this. I'm not what I would call an expert in this yet. However, I do think this is better than the 2012 game. Now, I've seen reviews online where they absolutely slammed the game and said that it's still too much in the middle between arcade and sim. They should have biased it more towards arcade, or they should have biased it more towards sim, and for that reason they've scored it down. I saw another site as well score this down because of the stuff they stripped out of the career mode, that you don't have the press conferences and stuff. I actually think that's a good thing. I hated the press conferences. I hated, if I reinstalled the game, that I would have to go through that stupid press conference where you answer questions about what are your goals for the season, what kind of a driver are you. I hate that. I would rather just go racing. So in that respect, I actually like the changes they brought in by paring that stuff out. I also feel that they maybe should have moved it more towards simulation, but that said, if you are a Formula 1 fan, and I am, this is a great experience. It really captures the essence of Formula 1, or the pageantry and the spectacle and the noise and the raw power of these cars is very, very well captured in this, and I think it's a great thing. One more thing actually worth mentioning, in the options, they've changed some stuff in the options of the game, in that you can now turn off certain elements of the in-car commentary. One of the big complaints with Formula 1 2012 and 2011 was that you would get your crew manager talking to you a little bit too much during a race. If he talked that much to a real driver in a Formula 1 race, the driver will probably quit. You can pare that down now. You can say, I want full commentary from my guy on the pit wall, or I want reduced, medium, and so on and so on. So that's very good as well. Overall, it's a very, very good game. It looks amazing, as you can see. It performs like a champ as well. I've got everything maxed in the video you're watching right here, and even with every detail maxed, it is still running at nearly 100 frames per second at 2560 by 1440, which is phenomenal. Overall, I really like it. It's not a sim. It's not an arcade game. It is very squarely in the middle, but that said, if you like Formula 1, you will pretty much love this. Watch out for more content on Formula 1 2013 on this channel. I will probably be putting up some more races, and I've got to do that video as well, looking at the classics. As always, my name is Frugal. Thanks for watching.